It's Friday, October 2nd, and time for your Barbados Today Morning News Update. Providers seeking to supply the national grid with energy from renewable sources above 1 megawatt are now able to do so through the feed-in tariff program with a guarantee return for their investment. The Fair Trading Commission is also projecting further savings in electricity costs as a result of more of the larger renewable energy systems being connected to the national grid. FTC Chairperson Tammy Bryan said that the determination was made recently in accordance with the Utilities Regulation Act and with consideration of the objectives outlined in the Barbados National Energy Policy.
The level of investment required to achieve the Government of Barbados' goal of 100% renewable energy by 2030 and the current economic position of the country, which unfortunately has been exacerbated by the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, have created a need for rates to address systems beyond 1 megawatt. Within the Barbados renewable energy context, the small size of the electricity market as a whole and the impact that a single renewable energy project, particularly a variable renewable energy project, is expected to have on the grid, projects above 1 megawatt capacity are considered utility scale. These larger projects, because of their associated economies of scale benefits, are expected to be viable at lower price points, and once operationalized in sufficient numbers should result in downward pressure on electricity rates.
Bryan said that the rates for systems of 1 megawatt and up to 5 megawatts will remain in effect for 18 months unless there is a material change in the market, including the exhaustion of the capacity, in which case a review may be taken earlier.
The rates for all new projects sized over 5 megawatts up to 10 megawatts shall remain in effect for 7 months until March 31st, 2021, or until such time as a competitive procurement framework is established. Licenses granted for projects under this decision will secure rates that will remain in effect in the contracts for 20 years. A total of 75 megawatts has been allocated by the Ministry of Energy to this component of the FIT program and has been subdivided amongst the two technologies and sizes.
The University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus is reporting a slight increase in student enrollment for this year, despite some challenges. Principal and Pro-Vice Chancellor Professor Udin Barito disclosed that the university welcomed 6,000 students. She told the audience at this year's professorial lecture that over $3 million was spent in getting the campus ready for the current school term, which began several days late.
In spite of a few teething problems, and we asked the students and faculty to still bear with us. We don't have the manual yet on running a campus in COVID. We'll write it at the end of the process, and we will share it. We are writing it as we go ahead. We have been able to commence teaching with a total enrollment of just 6,000 students, a 2% increase over our enrolled numbers at the start of the last academic year. And Professor Landis, we were surprised because we were looking for decline. And the numbers are interesting because the new students, the numbers have declined. The continuing students, the numbers have increased. But we have to do greater analysis because we suspect that increase may be the numbers who would have graduated out of the system if we had summer school. So we'll wait and see how it settles down. We suspect, however, that the number, especially of new students, could have been higher, but many lower-level matriculants would have had late CXC results. So I say to them, the ones who are now getting their CXC results, and I was hearing on the news of some of the challenges, that we can accommodate your entry to Cave Hill in January 2020.
Investigations into the circumstances that led to the death of Barbados Defense Force soldier Pablo Kinch is now at a very delicate stage. Emmanuel Joseph spoke with Crime Chief Richard Boyce on the probe and tells us more in this report.
5 months after being shot and killed under mysterious circumstances at the District A police station, the Assistant Commissioner of Police in charge of crime management, Richard Boyce, has declined to say whether progress is being made into the shooting death of Lance Corporal Kinch, who was on duty at District A police station last April the 6th. The most ACP Boyce would tell Barbados Today is that police investigators were still looking into the case. When he was asked if progress was being made, the crime chief said he did not want to go too far in his comments, explaining that it's because of the stage at which the investigations had reached. ACP Boyce insisted that he did not want to say anything which would offset what police officers were doing. In response to another question, the senior police officer also said it was too early to say whether a commission of inquiry would be conducted into the gun killing of the soldier. A check with the BDF yesterday evening revealed that the military will also carry out its own investigations, but only after the police force concludes its probe. Preliminary police investigations indicate that Kinch and 3 colleagues from the BDF had just returned from a joint patrol with police officers and were awaiting transportation back to their base when a weapon was discharged. Emmanuel Joseph for Barbados Today.
The ophthalmology department at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital is looking to treat patients off-site in the near future. However, department head Dr. Sherwin Benskin said advanced technology is needed to achieve the goal, which will take eye care treatment to another level in Barbados. He spoke about the initiative during a brief handing over ceremony of 2 laptops to the department from the Kiwanis Club of Barbados South.
What we aim to do is to expand the services of the eye department, and patients will no longer need to come to the eye department directly. We will be able to examine a patient from, for example, a distant polyclinic, even overseas, and bring our expertise, closer to the population, so to speak. Now, in order to do that, you can imagine that we need to use computers, the internet, to access the information. You also need a forum to store the information. This is where electronic medical records come in, and computers. So it is very, very important that we have computers, we have a proper network system, which we are fortunate in Barbados to have, and also the camera systems to monitor the patients and to transmit the data and photographs, etc.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To regional news now, the Guyana Public Service Union puts the country on notice for increased industrial action by nurses and other healthcare workers who have been protesting working conditions. The stance comes even as management at the Georgetown Hospital threatened disciplinary action against the workers if they did not return to their posts. More from Gordon Mosley of News Source, Guyana.
The Guyana Public Service Union has given the government and the Georgetown Public Hospital a 72-hour ultimatum to begin moves to address the concerns of nurses and other healthcare workers who have been on the front line in the fight against COVID-19. The move by the union comes in the wake of the Georgetown Hospital threatening the health workers with disciplinary actions if they continue with protests that the hospital considers illegal. In the past 2 weeks, there have been protests by nurses in Georgetown, Linden, and on the west coast of the Demerara, pushing for an increase in their risk allowance, additional protective gear, and improved salaries. In response to the protest, the Human Resources Department of the Georgetown Hospital wrote to all of those who took part in the protests, reminding them of the terms of their employment and threatening disciplinary action over the protests. But at a press conference today, GPSU President Patrick Yard said the demands of the healthcare workers are not unreasonable, and many of the demands have been on the table before. He said if the government does not move to address the concerns of the frontline workers, the union will call for full strike action.
The ultimatum that was issued is one that we will mobilize for full strike action if within 72 hours we do not get what we consider as a positive response to matured and professional discussions focus on an outcome in resolving this matter.
Mr. Yard said too many healthcare workers have been putting themselves and their families at risk as they go above and beyond to tend to persons affected by the coronavirus pandemic in the country. The union president said many of the workers feel undervalued as their concerns are not addressed.
Now, all these things were provocative, and all these things contributed to the anger and the emotions that prevail, and the fact that these people see themselves not as public servants, but like public slaves.
And finally, the Texas governor has ordered that voters can drop off their mail-in ballots at only one location per county in the lead-up to the presidential election.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott made it harder to vote by mail in the second biggest state in the country on Thursday, issuing a proclamation limiting all counties to just one site for voters to drop off mail-in ballots ahead of Election Day. The order significantly impacts Harris County, which has more than 4 million residents who now have a single drop-off location for mail-in ballots in a county spread out over more than 1,700 square miles. Harris County, which includes Houston, is the state's most populous county and a Democratic stronghold, which had opened 12 sites to collect early mail-in ballots. The order also affects Travis County, which includes Austin, another reliably Democratic city, which now must reduce its 4 drop-off locations to 1. In a statement, the Republican governor said, quote, "As we work to preserve Texans' ability to vote during the COVID-19 pandemic, we must take extra care to strengthen ballot security protocols throughout the state. These enhanced security protocols will ensure greater transparency and will help stop attempts at illegal voting."
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.